Just Guitars Live. My name is Rodney Wittenberg. I am your host along with my co-host here,
Tim Henke. How are y'all?
and we are so happy to be here live at Jamie's House of Music, and we are going to do our usual big deep dive into guitars. But before we do that, we want to talk about a good friend of ours and a really close friend of Tim's. And Tim, you want to tell us about your friend who we lost during our hiatus?
Yeah. My friend John, my dear friend, best friend John. He walked into my shop one day nearly 2 decades ago, looked around and said, yeah, real work gets done here, and this is where I want my guitars worked on, and he never left. His personality was one cross between Hunter S. Thompson, Albert Einstein, Christopher Lloyd's character in Back to the Future, and just about maybe a little bit of William Faulkner thrown in too. And John had many resources. He had a lot of money, and one day he was sitting around. That's why I never had to pay him. And he was sitting around, and he said, "You know, let's build a really cool shop." He said, "I don't have any wife, and I don't have kids, and I don't have any family, many immediate family left. I'm sitting on all this money. Let's do something really awesome with it. Let's build a really awesome shop, and I'll write checks and I'll really complain about it. And you and Cindy, that'd be my wife," he said, "you and Cindy do everything else." And I said, okay. So we formed a partnership and bought a place. It was a fairly rundown house. But it was a beautiful piece of property right across from Hope Lodge in Fort Washington. And that was in 2018, and John never got to see it. But this is our building. It's at 548 Bethlehem Pike, and this is the future home of Superior Guitar Works, Wissahickon and Design. And when he said, "Let's build a really cool shop," he meant it. I mean, this is a place that is going to be a house of artisanship. There's beautiful gardening work. We found an amazing landscape architect. She does incredible work. Her name's Chris Minucci, by the way. You can see the lighting in this place is beautiful. I do a lot of finish work. I do restoration and I do custom finishing work. This is going to be one incredible guitar shop. That's a picture of my friend John working away in the shop. That was John. And I just wanted to take a few minutes and thank him for everything he's done. He certainly changed my life, and he changed the life of a lot of people that he touched. He was an amazing man, and generous and kind, a little acerbic and irascible, to say the least. But if you could get through his gruff exterior, he was an incredible dude. And we have an incredible place to move our shop into.
What a legacy he's left.
Yeah, incredible.
So if you have a drink, raise a toast to John.
To John.
And thanks for letting us indulge.
Thanks for letting me talk about that. Appreciate it.
So now we're going to move on. We are going to take a deep dive into my favorite guitar that I own. And I have a lot of stories about this guitar, but we're going to learn about it. And that is the Hamer Daytona. And I went out in 1994 to buy a Fender Strat and a Martin acoustic guitar, and I came back with a Hamer and a Taylor. And the Hamer was just an amazing thing. I went into Medley Music, and my good friend David Lennett, as some of you may know, David Lennett was the guitar salesperson there, and I said, "David, I want to do it. I'm going to get a real Strat. I have some money, and I don't care. Show me everything. Show me the best." And he goes, "You don't want a Strat." I go, "Why not?" He goes, "You want this." I go, "That says Hamer on it." He goes, "Yeah, I know." And I go, no, 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 I want a real guitar. He goes, play this. So I remember I sat there and I played. I go, okay, wow, feels pretty good. And he proceeds to bring me out the most expensive Strat in the place. I think it was like $5,000. It was a Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I played him like, oh, it doesn't feel as good as that. And then I continued down the path of all the Strats that were in the store, and none of them played as well as this. And he goes, yeah, and he goes, if you don't buy it now, it was $750. It was going to go up to, I think, $1,200 or $1,500 when the next shipment came in. And so I looked at it and I said, okay, it's sold. I got it. I'll take it. So how did this guitar come to be, Tim? What is the story behind Hamer Guitars?
They got started in the early 70s. Two guys named Paul Hamer and Joel Danzig. They owned a music shop together. They were, even in the early 70s, they were fans of the vintage guitars, or what they called the good guitars. And in their minds, the last really good guitar had been built in 1963. So, after that, there was the CBS takeover of Fender. Norland bought Gibson, and we actually touched a little bit about this in a previous episode.
When we were talking about the Les Paul,
We were talking
and
about
when we
the Les-
talked about the Telly.
So, these two guys, they recognized this, and they recognized that even before there was a real vintage market, they recognized the fact that, these older guitars were really good. And what they did at their music shop was, they would buy these beat up used guitars, because this was like 1972, 1973. So, that's really not that far away from the late 1950s. If you had a 58 standard Les Paul back then, it wasn't really that old. It was just a used guitar. It was, it was what? Like a 15, 16-year-old guitar. So, but they still, even back then, they sold for around $3,000. That would be a Les Paul standard. From the late 50s back then was $3,000. These two guys would take these guitars, and Paul was like the salesman. Paul Hamer, he was the salesman. He was the talker. He was the extroverted guy. And Joel was the complete guitar geek, the complete guitar nerd. And he was the guy, he was the luthier. He was the guy working on the guitars. So they would restore these, these vintage guitars, and they would sell them in their music store. So, they were some of the earliest restorative luthiers. Which is really what I am. That's what I do, specialize in restoration work. And because of that, they really got to know the ins and outs of these beautiful old guitars, and they really appreciated their quality. But back in 1973, even $3,000 was a lot of money for a guitar. I mean, so they thought, well, we could take these same elements that make these guitars really good guitars and build one for half the price. So that way we would put on the marketplace, or we would offer to musicians a really well-built guitar that's built correctly, with the right materials, with the right hardware, with the right sound, with the right quality. But it'll be half the price of the vintage Les Paul, or whatever they were making. So that's what they did. But to the rest of the world, it looked like they were this, young boutique hand-built guitar company that's selling Gibson style guitars for twice the price of the most expensive brand new Gibson at the time, which you could buy that for $600. And the Hamer, the cheap Hamer, the bargain with Paul and Joel thought they were offering was a $1,200-$1,300 guitar. So from a market standpoint, from an industry standpoint, they were considered these, what did in Yoel Danzig's words, we didn't quite get it. It was kind of a mistake. When we created Hamer, we created the high-end boutique guitar category. So that's what they did. They actually created that whole genre of guitars, but we didn't intend it that way. We were seeing vintage 50s Les Pauls selling for $3,000. We thought we could make guitars just as good and sell them for a third or half of that price. So they thought they were offering a bargain, but the rest of the industry thought, who are these people offering these outrageously expensive guitars? And that's how they actually got started. And they were based in the Midwest near Chicago. And there you go. So the very first guitar that they offered that was actually their own design, not just like a custom made order or something like that. And it was still, you know, you could order customization on it because they were hand built. They were very much an artisan shop. They called it the Standard, and basically it was like a Gibson Explorer, on an Explorer style body, but whereas Gibson Explorers were, you know, just kind of like a slab mahogany body, and they generally had opaque paint job. You know, these guys loved the Sunbursts from the 1950s, the Les Paul Standards with the flame top. The Standard right there is, you can see the you can see it's got a flame maple top, it's got a bound body, and you know, it's got that beautiful cherry sunburst. The rest of the body is mahogany. It's the rosewood fingerboard. So it has all of the elements of you know, of a late 50s Gibson, but an Explorer never had a flame maple top, never came in sunburst, never had a bound top. So they took all the various elements that they enjoyed about these old Gibsons, and they incorporated them into, you know, their first guitar, which they called a Standard. And you know, Rick Nielsen was one of the players who really loved Hamers, and you know, he had that famous checkerboard one that they built
And
for him.
didn't Robin Zander also play the 12-string bass version?
Yes, he did. Robin Zander, Tom Peterson.
Yeah.
A lot of people played the Hamer 12-string bass. That was a thing that they that I forget who it was that asked them to make the original 12-string bass. But they weren't actually making money at the time. They had acquired a large collection of vintage guitars, and then they lived off of them by selling them. Interesting little detail. It was 1974 when they made like the Standard guitar. And the very first one was made for Paul Hamer, and it was serial number quadruple zero. And then Rick Nielsen liked it, and they put it in the hands of Rick Nielsen, and he really liked it, so Rick Nielsen actually ordered one. But if you know anything about luthiers, and really good luthiers, I mean, the better of luthier you are, the longer you take to finish the job. That is just kind of how it goes. So, and anybody that knows me will tell you that. So I'm just saying, if you're really good, it takes a long time to get it done. And Rick Nielsen got so tired of waiting for them to finish his guitar, Paul Hamer finally just handed him his guitar, 000. He said, "Here, take this." So he gave him the very first one, and then when, you know, Rick Nielsen's guitar was actually done, that was number one, and Paul Hamer got that one. So Rick Nielsen actually ended up with the very, very first, you know, Hamer Standard. And then they were really trying to sell these guitars. And then at one point, Yoel Danzig got an appointment, or went to see Ted McCarty, who at that point had owned Bigsby. And he was really excited to show him this guitar and see what he thought. And all the Gibsons that they were copying and that they were influenced by were from the Ted McCarty era of Gibson guitars. So, you know, there was Yoel, he's all excited to meet this guy. And he goes, and this guy cared nothing about guitars. He was so despondent apparently after this meeting because the guy looked at the guitar, didn't seem interested, told him, the Gibson Explorer didn't really sell all that well. I don't know what you're trying to do here. Hey, and apparently he was working on one of his latest inventions, or the thing he wanted to sell, which was a portable pocket flashlight, and he kept showing him this flashlight, and then y'all realized that Ted McCarty really was just like a businessman manufacturer. He wasn't really a guitar enthusiast, even though he was actually responsible for Gibson's quote unquote golden era. So that was kind of a little bit of a gut punch to them, but they soldiered on, and there were people who were interested in their guitars. Martin Barre of Jethro Tull, the bassist Ted Turner, the bassist for Wishbone Ash, Rick Nielsen, absolutely loved their guitars. So they were starting to get a following because if a rock star is playing the guitar, then you're going to want that guitar. I mean, that's kind of how that goes, So they were starting to get a following. So then they got some investment, and they formed the company. Officially formed the Hamer Company in Yoel's microbus. Apparently, the two people that worked with them in the shop, and Paul Hamer and two other unnamed people, I don't know who they were. They formed this partnership, Hamer Guitars, and it was born, and that's kind of how they got their start.
Wow.
So even though, and there was this other guy who got involved, a guy named Larry DiMarzio. He made pickups. So one of the interesting things about these guitars, which I thought was really cool, is, and this is where I get really, this is kind of where I geek out.
You haven't been geeking out so far?
No, not at all. Was the way the way they did their pickups. I don't know if you know anything about. If you've ever played some of the really old guitars, even throughout the 1960s and even into the 70s, for whatever reason, manufacturers did not. They would just wind the pickups, and the bridge pickup and the neck pickup would be wound the same, and that's works, but because the string if the string is anchored down here at the bridge and it's anchored here at the nut, well, down here at the bridge, you pluck the string, it's a wave, the string vibrates. Well, it's going to vibrate more in the middle of the span than it is at the end. And since the way a guitar pickup works is it works upon the vibration of the guitar string, which induces a voltage into the pickup coils and then sends the signal down to the amplifier, and then it gets real loud. Great. Okay, well, more vibration equals more signal, oddly enough. So if you're winding the neck pickup the same as the bridge pickup, but the string is not vibrating as much down at the bridge, well, you go to the bridge pickup, and that's where you want your really, that's the more bright and aggressive, and that's your lead guitar sound, if you will, in a lot of instances. But that signal's actually weaker than the neck pickup, which is why a lot of people went to the neck pickup for guitar solos, which does actually have a very unique, warm, and beautiful sound. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But it was very unbalanced. You'd go to your bridge pickup and the signal would drop down. Mm-hmm. And why? Why did it take decades to figure this out? But the way that most people figured it out, or the way that most people, including Larry DiMarzio, rectified that is by, if you wind more wire onto the bobbins, you end up getting a stronger signal. That's kind of how that works. That's one of the things that there's magnets and things like that. We're not talking about pickup design right now, but if you wind more wire onto the bobbin, you get more signal. So they would overwind the bridge pickup, which would boost its output to come more in line with the neck pickup, so you would get a more balanced signal between the neck and the bridge pickup. But interestingly enough, Joel Danzig didn't really like that approach. What he did, oh, and incidentally, another interesting detail, on all the early Hamers, on all the early 74, 75 Hamers, those were actually Gibson PAF pickups in them on the very early Hamers. So, because they collected all these vintage guitars and they had all these old Gibson PAFs laying around. What Joel did was he took the neck pickup and he unwound the coil. So he dropped the output of the neck pickup down as opposed to changing the tone of the bridge pickup. And that's what he actually had Larry DiMarzio do when they made their pickups when they actually started really making pickups for their Hamer guitars, as opposed to modifying actual Gibson PAFs. And I mean, you cringe to hear that now. Like somebody would take apart a PAF and like mess with the winding. Like that's almost like sacrilege, you know. But that's what they did. That's how they did that. And then they made the standard bass, and then they went to the Sunburst guitar. So it was Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick who asked Paul Hamer and Joel Danzig to make him a 12-string bass because he was playing an 8-string Hohner at that point, and he really wanted a 12-string bass, and that was something that nobody had done. Nobody even thought of it. Their manufacturing method, their manufacturing philosophy was very much, based upon 1950s way of building things. And that meant that, it was all in the quality of the wood and the quality of the construction, because that bass had a standard steel single action truss rod, and holding that much neck tension is really, really impressive to me. The wood selection and the way that they would have had to have been put together, extraordinarily impressive. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
It's interesting in doing the research for this. I stumbled across a live Cheap Trick concert, and I'm looking at both of them playing Hamer guitars, and I'm like, it's really interesting to have a 12-string bass, because when he was playing the bass, it felt like there was another guitar playing rhythm because of the 12 strings, and that he could get more than one tone at the same time. And I think it says they had quadraphonic outputs. Is that
they did have quadraphonic outputs. So that's it. There's the 12-string bass, 1978. That's actually the very first one. That's the one that was built for Tom Peterson, and that actually has a preamp with 4 channels, and each channel of that preamp is focused on, has a different frequency, resonant frequency point, so that you could dial that up or down. And it has 5 outputs. Has 4 as the quadrophenia output, quadraphonic output. Sorry, I'm a Who fan. What can I say?
the quadraphenia.
Quadrophenia output. And there's actually a picture of a very young Paul Hamer, standing there in the early days of the Hamer factory, and that's those are 12-string bass bodies right there. Those 2 in the middle. But this, you can see that they really were. There was real artisanship here, because you can see that that's Joel Danzig hands, and he's holding a chisel as he's cleaning up that control cavity for that preamp. So the player could plug in, in 4 different outputs, and then it went into some kind of like a preamp box, because it's a lot to plug 4 cords into an amp. And you could blend it, or you could, in fact, if you had 4 different amplifiers, you could set them up differently, and you would just get this amazing wall of sound and frequencies coming out of that bass. So it was pretty unique design there.
So we get to the 90s, and we come to my guitar.
They only made them for 2 years. I believe it was 94 and 95. I don't know who the player of note was. Was it Gary Moore
Yeah.
who played one? Yeah, it was
Uh-huh.
Gary Moore. That it's an absolutely shameless Strat copy. I mean, right down to the surf green. Then I can say the same thing, that the quality of workmanship is absolutely top end. It's not. It follows the design philosophy of the early Stratocasters, with some upgrades and improvements. Mainly the bridge on those. That's a Wilkinson type bridge, and it is a Wilkinson bridge, and it's one of the ones with the stamped steel saddles, and it's an absolutely amazing Strat bridge because the saddles are still stamped steel saddles like they are on Stratocasters. However, instead of the little intonation screw running in the back, the saddle actually has an extra length onto it, and it's actually clamped with a screw. It has a set screw that actually holds it to the top plate of the bridge, and the screw it you adjust the intonation. There's actually a little threaded hole behind the saddle where you thread in a little screw with a hand, with a knob on the end of it, and it pushes up against the set screw that holds the saddle to the plate. And you loosen that set screw up a little bit so the saddle can slide, and then you turn the knob screw, and while you have string tension on it, you have to adjust it a little bit, but you can get the intonation point really precisely dialed because it's a very fine thread on this screw, and then clamp it back in place and thread it out and then go to the next string. So that's how they solved the problem, or that's how that bridge solved one of the biggest problems with vintage Stratocaster bridges, is that the saddles themselves can move around and float from side to side. And also, it's one of the things that gives that guitar its sustain and probably contributes to a bit to the glassier tone of it, because of the fact that saddle is actually clamped right to the top plate. And why don't you play a couple licks and talk about how that sounds?
But I wanted a guitar that was kind of utilitarian, that I could pick off the shelf and go, oh, I need this sound, or oh, I need this sound, or I need an approximation of this or that. And this guitar did do that, but as Tim was saying, it does have its own unique sound, and it is very, for lack of a better term, glassy, as you can hear. My favorite thing about this tremolo, it doesn't respond like a traditional Strat tremolo, and Tim was just explaining why, but there's something about it that's slightly like a Bigsby, but then not quite, and it allows you to just be very, very expressive. One of the other things that's really amazing is it comes back in tune. As soon as you do, I can bend it all day long, and it is right back in tune. For the most part, when I have good strings on, and it does need, one of the things Tim and I have been talking, it needs
frets.
It needs new frets.
You done played them out.
And the sustain that he was talking about. So the other thing is, you can hear that it's got the same kind of bite that a Strat has, but it's different. It's so expressive. not a lot of guitars I can go that quiet on, and it's still there and it's even. So it's just a wonderful piece of machinery. Even the harmonics, like I love being able to, let's see. And as Tim was talking about the pickups, so that's the, where am I? That's the first position. And that just sounds so nice and glassy. It's great. I mean, it's one of the things I love doing with this guitar is playing some jazz stuff on it. Little Charlie Christian there. And again, it's amazing, sustained. I can keep that note going forever.
And that's on the clean sound as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting that kind of sustain on a clean sound. There's no overdrive. It's a
No.
very clean sound.
Mm-hmm.
And you know you're running that through. You're running that through a very, for lack of a better word, a very modern amp.
Yes.
That's a digital modeling amp that you're running that through.
Yeah.
And what does it do when you plug it into, an old amp? Does it retain that level of glassiness, or does it?
Well, it's weird.
I've never heard. I mean, honestly, I've never heard it plugged into the 55 Deluxe.
Let's plug it into the 55 Deluxe.
All right, let's do it.
You want to?
I'm all excited.
But I will say, years ago, I used to have a Fender Twin pre-CBS, and it didn't always
You had
sound.
a pre-CBS
yeah,
twin?
pre-CBS Twin.
Oh, I thought you had a CBS
No,
twin.
and it didn't
Oh.
always sound so great coming through that, because it is a very modern guitar, if you will. Even though those guys were trying to capture the vintage elements of a classic guitar from the 50s and 60s, there's something also very modern about this guitar. So you can hear one of the things about this guitar, the Hamer, and you can hear in Steve Stevens playing, is that it's a
Really melodic player,
It
by the
lends
way.
it lends itself to just being.
USB-C cable.
It lends itself to playing melody, which is one of the things I love about this guitar. So this is what it sounds like through an old amp that we have here. And you can see that it's not quite, it's pretty warm, but it doesn't have the glassiness. But it does sound like a Strat. And it retains a lot of the Strat-like qualities. What do you think, Tim? Does it retain? Does it have some of the same
It
qualities?
does, but you can tell it's not an old. It doesn't sound like an old Strat.
No, it
It
doesn't.
really doesn't. No, not at all.
Like if I go, let's see. It does not sound like a Strat. It sounds like a very, very modern guitar when I do that. Now, when I said I wanted something that was versatile, one of the other things that I love about this guitar, in versatile, in it being versatile, is even through this vintage amp, I can get something pretty close to like a like a good bluesy finger picking kind of. I can get that kind of stuff, but I can
I think
also
that
get
amp warms it up quite a bit, actually.
yeah, but I can also get a really nice funky sound out of it, like it's a very, very versatile guitar. One of the other things I like about it is not every guitar, and Tim, you can attest to this, not every guitar responds well to being, electric guitar responds well to being played with your fingers.
That's true.
And I am a huge Jeff Beck fan. And one of the things that I can do with this guitar is some of those things that Jeff does. And part of it is using the bar and using his fingers. And I just love being able to go. And then jump into a like sort of a rock thing if I had some distortion going on there. But this guitar does
Just turn
respond.
the amp up.
This guitar does respond very well to being played with my fingers. Another guitar player we can take a look at who plays.
I do have to
this
say,
guitar.
those pickups are really, really clean and shimmery.
Yes.
They really are. Do they overdrive well? I mean, if you, I'm not talking about through your modeling amp, which creates a waveform. You know what I mean? Based upon
It's a real overdrive. It's not like it's not like a modern crunch, but yeah,
Right. Okay.
it can. Well, you want to try? Is there a little preamp on this amp?
No, you just have to turn it up.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. See, it's very clean still.
It's still clean,
but
yeah.
it rocks. Which is one of the other things I like about it. It's a really good. Now that's done on a Tele, not a Strat, but I do think as we futz around with it, there we go. It was losing its Strat kind of sound as I turned it up, but it's back again.
Well, you brought the bridge pickup into play there.
Yeah. So let's listen to another guitar player who plays the whatchamacallit?
Hamer guitars.
Now, this is Gary Moore, and in this video he is playing a Les Paul, but the tone is very much like the tone that he's known for, and that the Hamer guitar that he used was designed for.
I found out the hard way. It's a road that leads to pain. I found out that love is more than just a game. Playing to win, but you lose just the same. But I've still got the blues for you. So many years since I've seen your face, but here in my heart there's an empty space you used to be.
first time I ever heard him play, I was just so blown away by his touch and his tone.
Yeah.
And you know, and his the way his phrasing and his articulation are just amazing. He really is a fantastic guitarist.
And I can see why Jeff Beck loves him so much, because
He's very similar.
they're very similar.
Very similar styles.
And I see why he loves Hamer guitars, and Hamer was the one that made the signature Gary Moore. Because again, he's a very melodic, bluesy rock player.
Right.
And while he does play fast, he gets that melody going, and it's just beautiful and icy and glassy and all those things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's, you know, it takes a certain kind of player to have a guitar that is really articulate and when you say glassy is the term you use, without it sounding brash, you know, and that's it's really good to be able to do that. I don't want to
Difficult.
shoot down our the premise of our podcast, but. It could just be that's how Gary Moore sounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it could just be
Yes.
Gary Moore's fingers. Because
Well-
I mean, I remember one time I was lucky enough to plug into Eddie Van Halen's rig with Eddie Van Halen's guitar, and you know, I was just like in awe. I'm like, wow, it's Eddie's guitar, it's Eddie's rig, and you know, and his guitar tech said, go ahead, you can play it, and you know, it was like plugged into the house, you know, and you know, that was my one fantasy moment, and you know, I didn't sound anything like Eddie Van Halen. I sounded like me with a really good guitar. So maybe that's just the way Gary Moore sounds. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, well, there is a lot to be said. We talk a lot about the sound of the guitar is in your fingers, and I know I've watched other people play my guitar, and it doesn't quite sound the same. And each guitar player has their own unique thing. So I think we reached the point. See if anybody has any questions, and then I'm going to play a couple songs for you.
Are Hamers still made?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you could go to the store and get a brand new
You
one.
can go to the store and buy them, and I haven't actually checked, but I do believe are they still exclusively made in the United States? I don't know the answer to that question, but I would say that I would venture to say that most of the lineup is. So they're definitely an American company, and like I said, I like the whole design and build philosophy that the company was founded on, because you know, they were you know, Joel Danzig was perceptive enough to recognize the beginning of the end of American manufacturing hegemony, really. And it's interesting that we one of our big political talking points is, you know, how to bring you know, manufacturing back to America. And you know, there is a philosophy that you know, we could go ahead and manufacture every cheap widget in the world and not pay anybody a living wage to do it, or America did best when the manufacturing was artisanal, you know, and you know, a lot of those old guitars from the 50s and 60s, and even Martin guitars today, a lot of those people in them factories, they're artisans. They're done by hand, and yeah, it is higher end stuff, but that's okay. You know, that's really okay, because I think that's one of the things we did best. That's all I can say about that.
All right. Well,
Why don't you
I'll play
just go ahead and rip for a little bit, dude?
this is called wild and precious life. I'm gonna sing from June till May. Gonna write a new song each and every day. Open my mouth up, I got something to say with this wild and precious life. I'm gonna love unconditionally. Love will set me free. I'm gonna open myself up to what this world has for me with this wild and precious life. I'm gonna run. Sun gives me vitamin D. I find joy in every face I see. Fly so high over green, green trees and never coming down. I'm gonna dance with the ones I love. Dance with the spirits and the morning dove. Dance to the drummer deep inside of me with this wild and precious life. I'm gonna grow like every plant I see, from a seed to infinity. Grow from sorrow, happiness, pain and joy with this wild and precious life. I'm gonna live like a wise old soul, like a wise old sage. I will never grow cold. And when I'm gone, do this one thing for me. Yeah, let's live a wild and precious life. 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 Thank you. Thank you.
That was pretty good. Right?
Did you write that one?
Yes, I did.
All right, that's good. That's really good, dude.
Show off a different sound of this guitar. Let's do. Oops, not bright enough. Let's see. Something else a little fun. This is something I love. I love taking different styles of music and fussing with them. So I always thought it'd be fun to do a sort of a heavy samba.
Wow, that was really good. That was good, dude.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was quite
So,
quite tasty.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight.
No, encore, one more.
All right, one more. Let's see. I wrote this song a long, long time ago. But as time passes, it always feels more and more relevant. I'm a Midwest farmer doing the work of the Lord. Pentagon general turning plowshares into swords. I'm a nuclear bomb with a bald eagle flies. I'm raindrops falling from a black and blue sky. I'm the blood of the children on the city streets at night. I'm a high school senior, can't read the Bill of Rights. I am American. I am American. God shed his grace on me. I'm a TV preacher, TV talk show host. KKK, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. I'm a New York rebel in tight blue jeans. Need a
walks on my arms and eyes like James Dean. I'm homeless on the sidewalk next door to the president. I'm a middle-aged mother with a phone playing the right house rent. I am American. I'm American. God shed his grace on me and I sing na 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 America. Na 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 America. Na 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 America. Na 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 America. I'm the Indian and the buffalo and the hole in the sky. Small town parade, baseball and apple pie. I'm the first man on the moon and the ghettos that burn. I'm Johnny Carson and Howard Stern. Martin and JFK, God rest their souls. I'm Janis, Jimmy and Jim and the king of rock and roll. I am American. Father knows best, the red light whore. Finger on the trigger of the cop at the door. Telephone sex, I'm a one-night stand. I'm the staple in the centerfold, getting stuck in my red hay. I'm waves in the ocean, black clouds above the trees. I'm a skinny man dying of a four-letter disease. I am American. I am American. God shed his grace on me and I sing na 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 America. Na 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 America. Na 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 America. Na 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 America. I am American. Born and bred in the USA. Thank you very much. And thank you guys for coming out to Just Guitars. Tim,
Hey,
Rodney, thank you. We'll see you next time.
yeah, we will.
That was good.
Thank you.
That was really good.
And this was the show called Just Guitars. That's what it's called, Just Guitars. It ain't about the tuba or sitar. That's why it's called Just Guitars.